Here is a complete ranking of all 30 MLB teams. What I will do in this video is explain every baseball team's history and success and rank them accordingly. There will be some factors that I consider while ranking, such as winning percentages, making the playoffs, and of course, championship wins and losses. Also, for the record, this is simply my opinion. Here are the first 15 teams on the list. Number 30, San Diego Padres. Despite being 3-time NL champions in San Diego, it's hard to keep the Padres out of being one of the worst teams in baseball. That's because the Padres hold the second worst overall winning percentage and worst overall playoff winning percentage in the league. That's really just a fancy way of saying that they're bad at winning in October. Like that one time in the World Series where San Diego was supposed to put up a good fight against the Yankees. But the trouble doesn't end there. Bad trades, fire sales, and that one time they drafted Matt Bush first overall. I guess it's time for rebuilding season. Score, -1.6. Number 29, Texas Rangers. In 1961, the Washington Senators expanded into the league, and as they moved into Arlington, Texas in '72, their 35-year postseason drought came along with them. It wouldn't be until 2010 that the struggling franchise made their first World Series. The Giants beat them in 5. Well, let's go back to the World Series next year with a better and more dominant team, thought Texas fans. And so they did, but this time, the Rangers would get so close to winning it all that they were at 1.1 strike away from it. That's right, in Game 6 of the World Series, they were 1 strike away.
Into right, well hit. Back at the wall. It's off the wall. Graves has tied it. 7-7. Unbelievable.
Bruh.
They lost in 7.
Bruh.
Score 1.9. Number 28, Seattle Mariners. Did you know the Mariners are the only team in MLB history without a World Series visit? That right there should say enough, but to make it even worse, the team holds 21 consecutive seasons without making a postseason, the longest current drought in all of professional sports, which, future me here, has been broken this year. That means their second to last postseason visit was in 2001, which just happens to be the year they held a franchise-best 116 wins, today the best record in MLB history, tied with the thrilling 1906 Cubs. But this fairy tale of a season ends when the no-nonsense Yankees beat them in 5 to reach the World Series. Other than some great players, the Mariners have been a sad franchise. Score 4.1. Number 27, Colorado Rockies. The Rockies haven't had a particularly long or bad history, so their low ranking can definitely have some improvement. Most notably, the Rockies had a great season in 2007. At first, they started rock bottom. Anyway, the Rockies won 21 of their last 22 games to reach the World Series. This included a winner-go-home battle versus the Padres, and then a sweeping of their playoff opponents to reach the World Series. But soon, they were swept by the Red Sox, ending their Cinderella run. Score 9.6. Number 26, Miami Marlins. The Marlins have made a lot of mistakes in their history. Let's see how many I can name in less than a minute. In 1997, in their 4th season in the league, Miami won the World Series. Great, right? As the city is celebrating with champagne, this happens. I want a fire sale. Every recognizable player on the Marlins championship squad is gone. Now they have 54 wins. They somehow won the World Series again, this time against the Yankees, so let's celebrate. Oh, hey Jeffrey Loria. Fire sale. Let's waste our money on a fancy new stadium and then lose our fans because we stink. Legend says the Marlins are still rebuilding to this day. Score 10.8. Number 25, Milwaukee Brewers. To me, the Brewers are one of the most forgettable teams, which makes me forget that they even made a World Series. Yes, in 1982, they won 95 games and scored 891 total runs to reach the World Series, where they blew a 3-2 lead to the Cardinals. After missing the postseason for a couple decades, the Brewers topped off their 82 season with 96 wins in 2011. This was largely because of NL MVP Ryan Braun, who definitely did not take performance-enhancing drugs or anything like that. Either way, the Brewers lost to the Cardinals again that postseason. Score 11.6. Number 24, Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies, known for their great creativity in naming a team, have been one of the worst franchises despite being in a big market. From 1903 to now, the Phillies have held the most losses in MLB history at over 11,000. In total, the Phillies have made 7 World Series and only won 2. But hey, let's focus on some positive stuff, right? Star slugger Mike Schmidt won a World Series in the 80s, and Jimmy Rollins in the 2000s too. And how about the 90s? I mean, they almost won in 93. You could just call that a win by itself. In heartbreaking fashion during Game 6, with a chance to force a Game 7, Phillies closer Mitch Williams had to force 3 men out to preserve their 1-run lead. However, Williams failed to do so, which cost them the World Series. Score 11.9. Number 23, Chicago White Sox. Look, I don't think the White Sox are a horrible franchise. They have won more World Series and lost, and won more overall games than lost too. But when adding up the statistics for the video, I made a note to take off a couple points for what happened in 1919. Widely regarded as one of, if not the biggest scandals in MLB history, the Black Sox purposely blew the World Series for money from a gambling syndicate. This might have cursed their franchise, since after 63 seasons, they made the postseason once. Frank Thomas and the White Sox later broke the curse after winning it all in 2005. Score 12.4. Number 22, Baltimore Orioles. From 1903 to 53, the St. Louis Browns were one of the worst franchises in the MLB, reaching their only World Series when the league was war-depleted. Then they moved to Baltimore and stepped up their game from the late 60s to 70s, except for that one time where they somehow lost to the Mets. Their success would continue even further into the 80s with star Cal Ripken Jr. on their team. However, it's what happened after the 83 World Series which brings Baltimore this low on the list. One of the statistically worst seasons in MLB history in 88, trading Curt Schilling for Glenn Davis, and a horrible 2019 season just to name a few. Score 12.8. Number 21, Washington Nationals. The Washington Nationals are simply a mediocre team who haven't exactly done much in their 53 seasons. For a while, they were located in Montreal as the Expos, where they did nothing. In 94, they were heavy favorites to win it all, but that just happened to be the year the strike happened, so no World Series was held. Then they did nothing, except move to Washington as the Nationals. But finally, in 2019, they won their first franchise World Series after defeating the Astros in 7. Score 13.4. Number 20, Tampa Bay Rays. The Rays are the most recent team in the MLB to join, and although they haven't won a World Series, they have been an okay franchise. In 2008, the Rays beat the Red Sox in 7 to reach the World Series. However, they'd fall short to the Phillies. Then, in the bubble, they defeated the Blue Jays, Yankees, and Astros before reaching their second World Series. But honestly, Tampa, who cares about the Rays? It's Tom Brady. They lost to the Dodgers anyway. Score 13.9. Number 19, Cleveland Guardians. The Cleveland Indians won 2 World Series in 1920 and 48, but ever since then, they've held a 73-year championship drought, the longest currently in the MLB. Here's what happened. In 54, the Indians were slaughtered as heavy favorites. Well, that's fine. Hopefully they won't continue with a long playoff drought. What happened? They continued with a long playoff drought, or fans got so detached that they had to offer a 10-cent all-you-can-drink night. They had success in the 90s, but ended up losing a couple pennants. After a choke job in 2007, an even worse choke occurred for them in the 2016 World Series. Cleveland held a 3-1 lead over the Cubs with almost a guaranteed World Series. However, unfortunately, the Indians blew their best chance to date after an extra innings Game 7. Score 14.6. Number 18, Minnesota Twins. For a while, the Twins were in Washington as the Senators. After a World Series won and lost, they would have great success in the late 80s. In 1987, the Twins won their first World Series, edging past the Cardinals in 7. But more notably, they won another pennant in 1991 against the Braves. Down 3-2 in the series, the Twins forced extra innings and won after Kirby Puckett's walk-off home run. In Game 7, Gene Larkin scored a walk-off home run in 10 innings to seal off the game and the series. Score 17.2. Number 17, LA Angels. Welcome to the City of Angels. LA has really only had two defining moments in their 61 seasons. One, the 2002 World Series. In 2002, the Angels faced a tough Giants team with Barry Bonds. In Game 6, the Giants were at 1.8 outs away from winning the trophy. They were up by 5 runs, and the title seemed in the bag for them. However, the Angels miraculously scored 6 runs and tied the series, later winning it. The second reason, Mike Trout, by far one of the best players in the league right now, who likes to watch the playoffs at home. Score 18.9. For the final team in Part 1, number 16, New York Mets. For the 5% of New York fans that actually support the Mets, you knew they were coming up sooner or later. With the exception of a couple miracles, the Mets have mostly been ridiculed as a joke of the league. In the 60s, they stunk, except for that one time when they somehow won their first World Series. Then, in 1977, star Tom Seaver demanded a trade, so the Mets stunk for several more years. This was until 1986, when they somehow won the World Series again versus the Red Sox. Mets fans celebrated and probably praised Bill Buckner a couple times, but don't get too excited, they haven't won anything since. Score 19.4. If your team hasn't been mentioned yet, be 100% sure to watch Part 2 and see where they rank. But so long, Slip and Sammy is signing out.